Welcome into another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, I've got 2025 Dynasty stashes. As always, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let's go. So, first player, Dyami Brown. Now, Dyami Brown has had a great playoffs after doing nothing for 4 years. But for his career, I think it's a really good time for him to break out since he's heading into free agency. So, this year, if you don't remember playing Dyami Brown in fantasy football, it's because you didn't. In 16 games, he had 30 catches, 308 yards, a touchdown on 40 targets, 1.9 catches, and 19.3 yards a game. So nothing. He did nothing all year. And this is the best of his 4 NFL seasons. This is his career year. This is the best he's ever done. But suddenly he's broken out in the playoffs. 11 catches, 187 yards and touchdown, and 13 targets in the Commanders' 2 playoff games. That's better than any of his first 3 seasons in 2 games. So what a time for a breakout performance for Dyami Brown. Now, why do I have him as a stash? Well, everyone's going to be watching him this week, I will say. A lot of people are going to be watching Dyami Brown. It's an opportunity for him to showcase more. And, yeah, I mean, everyone's watching these games, the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. And then a free agent for 2025. I mean, Brown is a young player, doesn't turn 26 until November. Another team could be interested in him. He did have 3rd-round draft capital, so he's not a nobody coming out of nowhere. I mean, teams scouted Dyami Brown. They're familiar with Dyami Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown has made fun of Dyami Brown. So we know who Dyami Brown is. This is not a nobody. So we're going to see. Maybe he'll rise in value. Obviously, I'm not going to believe in the player. Someone who did nothing for 4 years is not going to be my type. But he is a dynasty stash. Next player, Noah Gray. Again, is this really a player I'm so excited for? No, but we work on value, and this is an opportunity of someone who could gain value. Now, this year, Gray, 17 games, 40 catches, 437 yards, 5 touchdowns, 49 targets, 2.4 catches, and 25.7 yards a game. Gray was more involved this year. This is his best year of his career. But unfortunately, Gray's kind of faded away lately, so he's gotten a little out of mind, and that might help in terms of getting him as a throw-in in bigger trades. Now, for me, I don't know this, but I'm feeling as if a Travis Kelce retirement might be on the horizon. I'm seeing it discussed, and Gray has had a consistent role in the offense. We know they gave Gray a contract extension this right before the season. Kelce could easily retire after this season. He's 35. The Chiefs would save $17.2 million by not having him on the team. They signed him to this extension, and it felt as if the extension was saying, look, you're committed to 2024. 2025, we're going to see. We're going to see. Maybe you're not going to play that year. I don't know. Again, this is not me saying that if Travis Kelce wants to come back, the Chiefs are not going to cut him. That's not on the table. But the contract was set up that if Kelce retires, it's not going to hurt the Chiefs in cap-wise. Now, Gray has played at least 45% of snaps in every competitive game this year, excludes the Week 18 game where the Chiefs really didn't play any starters, of which Gray only played a few snaps and then left. There were times at which Gray was consistently breaking 60%. I mean, there were times during the year before Hollywood Brown came back after Rashee Rice was injured, where Gray was like the 3rd weapon behind Xavier Worthy and Kelce. And there were times where Kelce was even disappearing in favor of Gray. The Chiefs didn't find anything from Hopkins, nothing from Juju. And Hollywood Brown hasn't been all that great. Now, let me just say this. I do not think that Noah Gray can be Travis Kelce. I don't even know Noah Gray can be 50% of Travis Kelce. If Travis Kelce retires, Noah Gray would gain a lot of value, and then he would be a massive sell for me. I would be selling him on the hype, not keeping him. I would want to capitalize on that value. But a lot of these stashes are all about players who are going to gain value where you can capitalize on it later. Gray is definitely in that category. So Roschon Johnson, my next player. And we know the Bears hired Ben Johnson as the head coach. We know Ben Johnson hates DeAndre Swift. It's very clear that that's the case. Hates Swift. And I fully believe that the Bears will make an attempt to add to this running back room. But they have a lot of needs. We've seen that in the past. Sometimes teams try to add to the running back room. It doesn't work out. The Cowboys were that team this year. So Roschon Johnson this year 55 carries, 150 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2.7 yards a carry, which is abysmal, and 16 catches for 104 yards. Now, the receiving was actually better than you'd think. Johnson was used as a goal line back, so it's not as bad as the yards per carry suggests. He did have those 6 touchdowns. It's not like he offered anything exciting, but if you look at his success rate, he actually was not nearly as bad as just looking at the yards per carry. So I don't think Johnson was terrible in 2024 as these stats would indicate. Now, as I said, DeAndre Swift has a history with Ben Johnson. In 2022, Johnson became the OC of the Lions, offensive coordinator, and Swift was the starting running back. So, and at that point, Swift was a top 5 dynasty running back. Johnson came in, and he felt that he should give 262 carries to Jamal Williams, a goal line specialist. Williams averaged 15.4 carries a game compared to just 7.1 for Swift. So Williams doubled up Swift's workload. Didn't matter that Williams was a far less efficient back than Swift. None of that mattered. Didn't care. We saw that DeAndre Swift was not involved. Not involved at all. So, look, could Roschon Johnson get more work? Yes. I liked Roschon Johnson as a prospect coming into the NFL. Still a young player. We're going to have to see. But this is a player, just don't drop him. Don't drop him from your dynasty roster. Hang on to him. Give him a chance with a new head coach. See how it goes. If it doesn't go well, you can cut him. But we don't like to drop these running backs that we believe have some sort of talent. So I would hang on to Roschon Johnson, and we're going to see what happens this offseason. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. Right now, 50% discount at all tiers using the code TylerYT. I talked about this on my Patreon promo yesterday or 2 days ago. You get all my rankings, including the newly posted rookie ranks, access to the Discord, all my write-ups, and the ability to ask in advance questions for the YouTube videos. Tiers begin at just $6 a month, $3 with discount, include everything I listed, plus options for direct message fantasy advice at higher levels. If you want to know more about the Patreon, check out my Why You Should Join the Patreon videos on the channel. I dropped one on Wednesday. Because of that video, 3 people signed up for the Patreon on the day that video was posted. Obviously, I don't think that's a coincidence because it's a very difficult time to get people to sign up for the Patreon. So it was telling me I should release more advertisements. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that 20-minute advertisement every week. But I do think, once a month is probably too often. Once every 2 months, is about right, I think. So probably do another one in the free agency area. But I'm going to have to keep doing those because they consistently work to bring in patrons. And again, it's 20 minutes of just me talking about the Patreon. So if you want to know more, that's where I would look. With that said, we'll move into my next player. So next up, Tyler Higbee. And Higbee was literally left for dead, myself included. But then he reemerged down the stretch. And as weird as this is, he vaulted past Cooper Kupp as the secondary target in the Rams offense. Very strange. He did only play 3 games of regular season coming back from that late ACL tear last year. And even then, 8 catches, 66 yards, 12 targets, 2.7 catches, and 22 yards a game. He's, I don't know what's going on. His StreamYard's been buggy lately. They're really thinking about finding another place to stream. But regardless, 2.7 catches and 22 yards a game. Higbee wasn't too involved, but he wasn't bad despite a very limited role. Failed to break a 41% snap share in any of these games. 5 catches, 46 yards and a touchdown in week 18. But in the playoffs, suddenly Higbee was very involved. First playoff game, 5 catches, 58 yards, and 5 targets. So you might remember, Higbee left this game with a chest injury. He only played 23% of the snaps. So all of this came on the scripted plays. The Rams' season was on the line, and their decision was, we are going to script plays, not for Cooper Kupp, but for Tyler Higbee. Isn't that wild? And then, despite the chest injury, this week he comes in, 7 catches, 54 yards, a touchdown on 10 targets. 82% snap share despite the chest injury. More catches and targets than Kupp. So, Higbee was very involved. Now, looking forward, Higbee's under contract with significant guarantees for next year. They wouldn't save much by releasing him. I bet that they keep him. He was clearly a productive player when healthy. He'll be 32 years old. I just don't see any reason why they would release him. Now, Higbee could be the 2025 version of Zach Ertz. Player was kind of struggled a little bit down the stretch. There were some issues, injuries, and then just comes back and is good for another year after people have already written him off. So I would definitely stash Tyler Higbee with what I saw down the stretch. I mean, he was literally good for the last few weeks. So it's possible that he could duplicate that in 2025. The Rams, of course, could bring in a tight end, but that's true of any of these stashes. They could all be replaced. So that's why I'm interested in Tyler Higbee. Last player, Elijah Mitchell. So Mitchell obviously did nothing in 2024. He missed the entire year with an injury. And, we can't obviously look at his 2024 stats, but we can look at his career stats. In 27 games, 327 carries, 1,523 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4.7 yards carry, 28 catches, 158 yards and touchdowns. So we know what Mitchell was, a trustworthy player on the ground who offered nearly nothing in the passing game. Reminds me a lot of Jordan Mason, not Isaac Guerrero, but Jordan Mason. So what does that mean? Well, we know that running backs can resurface, and Mitchell was good. Throughout his career, he was always good. He was a solid backup. Turns 27 this offseason. If the 49ers want to retain him and let Mason walk, I do think that's possible. They would have Christian McCaffrey, RB1, Isaac Guerrero as his backup, because Guerrero is more, of course, none of these players are Christian McCaffrey, but Guerrero is more of a handcuff for Christian McCaffrey, whereas with Jordan Mason, you've changed the entire running offense to work with Jordan Mason versus Christian McCaffrey. And then Mitchell would provide kind of a different running back in the mix. If not, he could join a depth chart elsewhere, but we want these types of guys. So for me, just a player, probably would try not to cut unless I had to in deeper dynasty leagues. But that's kind of all I have to say about Elijah. So this is the coaching show. I mean, this is the one where we're going to go through all the coaching hires because this was a lot of them. Aaron Glenn was hired as the Jets head coach. Glenn was the defensive coordinator for the Lions. He was a top candidate in this hiring cycle outside of Ben Johnson. With his choice of jobs, a lot of teams were interested in Glenn. The Jets are working on, I believe they just hired a general manager, and the OC, I believe they're interested in someone from the Rams, I think Nick Caley. So we're going to still see about all of that. Regardless, I'm not sure. This is one of those teams where usually a defensive-minded head coach, my first thought is, okay, who's the offense coordinator? Here, my first thought really is, what are we doing about Aaron Rodgers? What are we doing about Devontae Adams? How is that going to all work? And until I know that, I'm not really going to have much of an opinion on the Jets because it's two totally different universes. The universe where they bring back Aaron Rodgers and the universe where they don't have nothing in common. So that's my first thought about the Jets. I'm going to reserve judgment until I know the answer to that question. And I'm not sure Aaron Glenn leans one way or another on that. The Patriots brought back Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. Not a big fan of his, honestly. Completely screwed up with Mac Jones. Did a very poor job. We're going to see what happens with Drake May. I think Drake May, a little tougher. So that's maybe not going to be an issue. I didn't make any rankings adjustments based on this. I'm going to keep an eye on it. Mike Vrabel's a solid head coach. I'm going to give it a chance. We're going to see. I do think Josh McDaniels is a bit 10 years ago. I'm not sure he's going to cut it today, but we're going to have to see. I'm not ruling it out as being successful just yet. So, yeah, it's not what I wanted, but I'm going to give it a chance. Liam Coen was hired as the Jaguars head coach. Well, this is a wild story. I mean, without all the drama, we know all the drama. There was the interview, there was this, a contract, and not a contract, sick children, maybe not really, who knows? I'm not going to get into all of that, but we have to get into the reality, which is what's happening now. Liam Coen was an excellent coordinator for the Bucs. He actually did better than Dave Canales did in the same offense. He revitalized the running game. I will say this, though. I am not interested, and I'm guarantee you're going to hear this. Travis Etienne will become Bucky Irving. Yes, he will. Oh, yes, he's going to. No, he's not going to do that because Travis Etienne is bad. He's a bad player. He has been bad for over a year and a half. He was bad for the last half of 2023. He was bad all year. Tank Bigsby, replaceable, nothing interesting. These are bad players. Bad. They are backup running backs level of talent. Jaguars could consider bringing in another running back, but and then maybe I'd be interested. But Coen is not going to make these guys into Bucky Irving. It's not happening. So if anyone believes that, I would get rid of these players immediately. The player I am interested in is Trevor Lawrence, who I think could be revitalized by Liam Coen. That could be interesting. But the running backs, no. He's not going to make bad running backs good. That's not going to happen. Now, Pete Carroll was hired as the Raiders head coach. I don't think anyone wanted this job. There's no quarterback. They're not going to get a quarterback. They're too low in the order. They do have a lot of cap space, so that's nice. But something tells me the Raiders are kind of looking for, they know they're not going to be good next year. They're looking for maybe a transitional head coach to kind of take the job for a year or two, and then a different head coach when they get their franchise guy. Kind of how I was feeling. The Raiders are going to run the ball a lot. If the Raiders do something crazy and select Roschon Johnson at 6, I will be very in on him because we know volume is what matters most for running backs. Yeah, not going to be optimistic about a lot of things here, but hopefully Pete Carroll decides not to take Brock Bowers off the field. That would be dumb, but I don't think he's going to do that. And lastly, the Texans fired offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik. They needed a scapegoat, but it also wasn't working. I think it's good to have some change. Clearly, nothing was working in 2024. People seemed unhappy on this team. I applaud the move to try some change. We're going to see who they hire, but this is not really moving my ranks. I think I'm happier with random coordinator hire than bringing Slowik back, if those are the two choices. So overall, I think it's a slight positive. Not enough to move any rankings, though. I generally don't move rankings based on coaching hires. Very rarely. We're wrong about that so often. I mean, a lot of people said Dan Quinn, myself included, was a terrible hire for the Commanders. That was not right. Cliff Kingsbury's the OC there. A lot of people hated that. That was wrong. Myself included. I hated those hires. It was wrong. So it's just, if you just don't ever make rankings moves in Dynasty based on coaching hires, you're probably better off than trying to make moves. Now, got a couple of Patreon questions, so we'll hop into that. What will be the best and worst landing spot for Ted McMillan if he's projected to be a top 10 draft selection? I do think he'll be a top 10 pick because he's the wide receiver 1 in this class. If you don't count Travis Hunter or count him as cornerback. A lot of spots are bad. I do think the Patriots are the best spot. The Raiders, not so good with no quarterback there, alongside Bowers and Myers, and they'll probably have another free agent wide receiver. So that could be a loaded offense with no quarterback. That's not ideal. But we don't fade these types of prospects. I don't care where he goes, unless he goes to a team with another young alpha wide receiver, of which there are like 7 in the NFL. So of the teams picking in the top, that's just the Giants, Malik Neighbors, and the Jaguars, Brian Thomas Jr. So unless it's one of those teams, I'm not fading Ted McMillan. Because we've seen from those two teams that if you're really good, you're going to be good, even if the quarterback and offense suck. And lastly, is there a significant difference between Bucky Irving? Oh, we talked about Bucky. And players like Dameon Pierce, Tyler Algier, rookie season, which would lead you to believe he won't pan out year 2. Yes, there is a very significant difference. Bucky Irving was elite. Those guys were just okay. Bucky delivered elite rushing volume and excellent value in the receiving game. Essentially, Bucky gave you a season comparable to Kyron Williams' 2023 season. It was more efficient, but less volume, but very comparable in terms of how good it was. I will warn you, Case Brown 2024, not that. It's more similar to Dameon Pierce and Tyler Algier than it is to Bucky Irving. So, yeah, Bucky Irving did enough to say Bucky Irving is going to be an elite talent or close to it. So, yeah, I have zero doubt about Bucky Irving. Whereas a lot of these other guys, I had some doubts. I have Bucky significantly higher than I had Pierce and Algier after their rookie years, to give you an idea. Now, if you like the video, make sure to support the channel by subscribing. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, is available on the Patreon. Dynasty content year-round. 50% discount at all tiers using the code TylerYT. You can click the link in the top right corner, patreon.com/fantasy advice to sign up. And that 50% discount is going to be good for at least the next month or so. And every sign up helps support my independent content. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all